So this is going to be a showcase of a build that loads of people have been waiting for, which was the Knife Lord. However, I do have some disappointing news. Whilst playtesting it, I found out that basically because of the 1.5 updates, Crime Lord is probably the second weakest origin, with Navy Officer just being a straight upgrade. So my Knife Lord build showcase that was meant to be this one is now Navy Officer Assassin build. Yeah, it's just better. It's just better. For the early game, this is going to be a little bit of a Act 1 showcase. I will be going into some spoilers for the DLC 1 boss in Act 2, as well as a DLC 4 boss in Act 4. So if you don't want to see those, do skip those bits. And yeah, after this section, I would suggest just jumping ahead to the build guide. But I'm going to share a little bit more about how you play it. So by going Forge World with locomotive systems, we can get a lot of dodge, which we can then build up with Machine Spirit Communion and even your allies for warning, which means you're not going to get hit. If you manage to parry enemies, you do seem to get counterattacks. It does appear that they fixed the bug where if you also dodge their attacks you parry, that you don't get to hit. And because we are using the Interrogator's Dagger in early on, no, sorry, not the Interrogator's Dagger, the Prisoner's Shank, yeah, our offhand damage can greatly and wildly vary. Unfortunately, one of the caveats is, yes, this build is entirely possible as a blade dancer, but you have to use swords. The reason we like to use daggers on a warrior is because it counteracts the negatives that you are seeing coming in from the killing edge, which gives enemies extra dodge. Yeah, the Prisoner Shank, you will notice, does incredibly wild damage. It is not consistent. Sometimes it'll be really high. It's because it's got that 1 to 18 range. But as you can see here, the gameplay is you get in there, you can dodge things, you can parry things, and then you get make counterattacks with this dagger that can do exceptional damage in Act 1. It's pretty funny. It's not OP or anything, but yeah, I put a chainsaw in one hand to increase our parry chance, dagger in the other hand so we can make some revenge attacks. And yes, like I said, the damage can wildly vary from like 24 to 77. Now, if we want to look at Act 2, I have just given 2 navigator buffs here. No, if anything, actually, I've only given 1 navigator buff and a bring it down, which I have then taken from Cassia's turn, which, because of some of my talents, he's going to have a little bit of starting AP. The trick to this encounter, to one-turn it, is just knowing how to move around the battlefield to get access to either Daring Breach on a warrior or Death Waltz on a blade dancer. So I'm going to start off with Breakthrough. I am using 2 Drukhari daggers, just the basic Hitatari ones that you get by going to Vibos. And as you can see, yeah, the damage that I do here with Shearing Strikes is I kind of make 3 attacks, and I'm using the Inertia Boots to counteract the fact that the 3rd attack doesn't seem to work with Rigorous Training, and it kind of bugs out with Shearing Strikes, so you do lose your MP, which is kind of annoying, which means in Act 2 you're really going to want to crutch on those Inertia Boots. Yeah, those are incredibly overpowered. As you can see, an augment that I'm using here is also the eye lasers. Now, if you watched my tier list that I did recently, the eye lasers are very good. One of the other items that I said was very good was the teleport boots, the Skull Crushers. Now, I slightly misplaced that. I was hoping to attack all 3 enemies, but I didn't because I missed one of them. But as you can see, you do follow up and make some really good attacks. And as you can see, I am absolutely shredding enemies, and I'm not even doing my full attack economy, because like I said, it can make 3 attacks, and from those 3 attacks, we can then obviously have 2 eye lasers coming in from the offhanded attacks. When we do use our killing edge, especially on openings, yeah, we do an acceptable amount of damage, and you want to go, because of Shearing Strikes, to the opposite side of enemies before you dash through them, and you do a lot of damage. One of the other things I use is the Hemo Augment. This means that we can use stims without getting the negative side effects, so it's actually very good if you go Heretic, because you can obviously use the Crimson Haze, but there's also a slash one that gives you minuses. With this augment, we can ignore the minuses, so we can get another 2 free casts of slash, so even without buffs, you can use them quite a lot. As you can see, I've got them on my hotbar, and I will be using some of them. I also like to use Scorchers, because Scorchers gives us more attack economy, so this is also very good. And the last augment that I am using in here is going to be the Pneumatic Assault. It's just very useful to get another attack, and if we critical, we get another offhand, and we also get loads of little eye lasers coming in because of all that. So I'm going to pop on the Crimson Haze, gives an extra 100% crit damage. Very powerful. I should have used it at the start of the turn, but I wanted to slowly introduce you to what I was doing here. So as you can see here, even with Reckless Training, if we parry when they attack us, from Reckless Strike, we also get to make another offhand attack. So you notice this is why I like the Navy Officer version. It's just infinitely better. Now, if you were using mods and you're using the Navy Officer Unleashed one, so you can take Fleet Combat Training on anyone, I do recommend it. I am using the Malpian Shroud in here, but I will show versions of it without using the Malpian Shroud. You don't need to use it, it's just that there's no reason not to if no one else is using it, because it is an incredibly OP item. But as you can see here, full attack rotation, almost kill the boss from a single slash, and because we're actually playing Heretic 2, yeah, we pick up a lot of AP as we're making kills, so that's where all that little APs come in, and it's very useful for this build, because this build doesn't need a lot of AP, but it does enjoy having access to it. Oh, I'm on the wrong side for the slash here. But yes, if I go around here, we've also maximized momentum. I'm using the Face of the Sovereign, so my kills was also picking up my resolve, because it's a low, it's a low fellowship character, so it doesn't have much resolve. I also have Get Off Me, so we can knock things down, but yeah, I've easily generated Finest out of Cassia. So yeah, this is easy one character, one turn. From Cassia, just using Bring It Down, and only a single Navigator buff. I like to go with the Assassin. I like to go with the movement ability first, then Killing Edge, then Death Whisper last. Especially the way I like to use this build. Yeah, I don't need a Death Whisper early for attack economy. Now, there is only these two guys left, and we still have a lot of AP. I didn't even show off the pneumatic assault arms that much, so might as well just use it. Yep, bang, get critical, you can offhand as well. And yeah, if you're going to do a opening attack with Reckless Strike and a Killing Edge, yeah, you're going to do a lot of damage. But let's show the evolution into Act 4 next. So this version I will show just with Cassia given a basic buff. This does go into my Death Aura build, and it is using Fiend of Vibo 6. So with just some, I think we're going to use 2 infusing buffs here. So again, not overly stacking. And then we're just going to once again apply a Bring It Down. Now I am using the Inertia Boots. I'm actually going to bring it down Argenta, so we can add in a Litany of Hatred, because why the devil not? We have access to buffs, why not use them? It's up to the devs to make the game balance, not us. Because of this, I am actually a Dogmatic 5, though you could play any alignment. The reason I like to go Dogmatic 5 is Heretic 2 is very good, Dogmatic 2 is very good, Iconoclast is, it's okay. But it's the ability to give heroics isn't really necessary for my Iconoclast. The Heretic one is just plus 20 to stats. Dogmatic one is the best because it ignores it ignores enemy defenses. So if you're going to pick anything, yeah, I would say that Dogmatic is probably the best alignment. Not just from an RP perspective, but also from power. But as you can see here, so with just from the base buffs that we are going through, and we are stabbing, and we are just exploding enemies for loads of damage here. Don't worry, I will explain the build. If you just want to follow the guide itself, that is going to be linked in the spreadsheet, and I will explain some of the itemization here and why we're using them. Some early game suggestions are on the build, but just always remember, when it comes to the builds and when it comes to augments, they are purely suggestions. You are open to customize them as you like, but if you do move talents around, I cannot guarantee the power and efficiency of the builds. We're going to give Irilong a pretty big hit here, just to kind of show off what we can do here with some of these. Yeah, he don't like those. But I also have the phase oscillators on here. So this time, instead of using the teleport boots, I just wanted to show off the phase oscillators, because you can just sort of run through enemies and kill them. So you can kill enemies just by approaching them, and then if they somehow survive, you can then walk through them, and you can extra kill them that way. So as we switch over to Dayrake, because we start off during our turn, I don't think he's going to even remotely be a challenge. For those of you who are wondering, yes, I am using the Dark Heresy UI mod. That's why I have this superior looking chat icons. So you don't need to reactivate any of these powers, but you can do if you feel like it. Same with Endure. The reason I'm activating Endure and the reason I activated some of the other deflection stuff is I have quite low armor because I'm just in light armor, and the boss is going to counterattack me because I do plan on using a Reckless Strike. So I'm just making sure I'm going to be all set up for that. As with before, I do still have the Hemo filter on, but I did forget to equip the stims. I'll show that on a different version of this encounter afterwards, but we'll save that surprise for once this is done. So one of the things that you can do that is very nice here is you can chase openings. As you can see, the opening's on the other side, so I dash through and I can hit him. Unfortunately, the initial one has started in that back corner, so normally I wouldn't be able to get to that, but because Taunting Scream with my Death Aura build, I can actually hit that opening by using Taunting Scream. Then I can actually walk through the boss here to get back to the side that I want to be on, walk back through, and that will hit the opening, walk back through and hit the openings again if it was lined up right. Unfortunately, it is at that little awkward angle, so it's not counting. But what I'm going to do is I am just going to show off a little bit some of the power that we can do here. So we're going to get rid of Reckless Strike, we're going to hit and aim for the opening. And we're going to hit a killing edge with our 2 daggers here. We've got now Dara and Drakari one. And yeah, they're each going to hit for 2k, not to mention all the little damage procs. Now, I know for a fact that after that little showcase, someone would give me grief to be like, my buffers. Now, I agree. This game should not be entirely about buffers, but I will just slip on the Commander's Chrono here because every enemy in this encounter can one-shot you, or at least two-shot you from a burst, because this game is nothing but pure rocket tag. So I've taken off my Litany of Exhaustion, which was using to give me a lot of damage effects, but by lowering my damage, I can equip the Commander's Chrono to go first. I've taken off the Malpian Shroud, though it doesn't look like it, so I've equipped the Swashbuckler Cloak, I've taken off Invigorating Resolve, and I've swapped it over to the Slicing Symbol to generate MP, and I've taken off the boots, and I've put on the Stalker's Boots, so we get additional attacks when using Slash, so we'll get a 3rd hit coming in there. So if I don't lose Slash, yep, I can dash through here, still do some exceptional damage. Didn't even get to do all the additional hits because everything's dying. So I should get 2 additional offhands to the first 2. So going through, then the offhand, then 2 more offhands because of Navy Officer, and also because of the... yeah, because of what we're doing with the other stuff. I have put back on the teleport boots, so you get to see me just absolutely annihilate Kunrad. And then I will do the same to Uralon, who essentially just gets one shot. Then I will activate Day and Breach. I will need this for MP generation because, yes, Shearing Strikes is unfortunately bugged still. If you go over just 1 additional attack, then yeah, you do lose all your AP. But everything in this counter did. Now, have to be a little bit more careful going against Daybreak because I only have 1 attack action because, yeah, Daring Breach, you lose the properties of it, and I didn't Finest Hour. But I have put on my stims for my Hemo filter, as well as using my other little fun bits with the augments. So I reckon I could probably even kill Daybreak without even needing to use Killing Edge itself. So I am going to mark him for Sworn Enemy. Going to activate Onslaught to get my dashes that way, but I'm also going to activate Crimson Haze. Activate Stim just so I can make sure I can comfortably get through all the attacks I want to do. So as I move over to this chap, I am going to start by hitting that opening. Then I'm going to slash on through. Actually, I can Furious Assault first. Why not? We've got the teleport of things and it doesn't even matter. The bleed doesn't really proc on us instantly. But yeah, then we go through offhand, offhand, offhand. So yes, a good number of hits happening there on Slash. Then I can't phase through him because I am using the teleport boots. I had them on in case we were going to have some MP issues. We'll use Death Whisper to hit this opening so we can hit it one more time. I could easily try to dash through him to set up even more. But I am going to instead use Maiming Convergence because he's going to take a lot of damage from this. So even with the eye lasers, yeah, that's 1 dead Daybreak. GG. Now, there are a great many ways that you can equip this build. Like I said, you could do the typical Malpian Shroud on the cloak and then get the Invigorating Resolve, but even on this build I'm using Swashbuckler's Cloak and I'm using the Dog Tags instead. You can use the Inertia Boots. At all points of this game does the Inertia Boots make this build easier, and with the Inertia Boots you can easily use the Phase Oscillators instead of the Skull Crushers. Skull Crushers do benefit from the better movement, especially because you can make a lot of extra attacks, and yeah, having the ability to just run through enemies to kill them is pretty hilarious. I really like being able to use all of these stims here. So one of the ones I like to use is Onslaught, and we don't see the negatives. Crimson Haze we can put on, but again we don't see the negatives. Scorcher, again, we can just get a free attack. Again, don't see the negatives because of the Hemo filter, and regular Stim didn't really have any negatives because he rarely goes to next turn. But again, all of these injections have no negatives. In Act 4, the main weapons you're going to want to have is Lilithian's Fury, because when the wielder deals damage to the target, it makes them blinded. And until the end of combat, the first attack with the Fury for a round against a blinded target does not set the attack and cooldown. So if we've used our breakthrough and then we slash through them, we can get 2 uses of Killing Edge out of this on that target, and we can also get those offhand hits from the Hitari Blade of Bloodthirst. So this blade deals additional damage for each common negative effect on them, so that makes it very exceptionally good with of the Litany of Exhaustion, because all of this stuff will stack and allow us to do additional damage. And as our things go up, this will then do extra damage from half of our agility, so yeah, we'll do quite a bit of extra damage. At the moment, I've got the Deathworld Origin Enforcers like Carapace on just to get some agility. You could get another 20 agility if you swapped over to the Hidden Promise, which you can use with the Inertia Boots, or you could change the boots on here. So I did mention that you can use a Stalk Boots. The only problem is Shearing Strikes is still bugged when you go beyond the additional attack. So your Navy Officer Fleet Combat Training will probably end your movement as well, even though most things do die before you get a chance to do it. But that's one of the reasons why I also pick up Dance Macabre early. But yes, I've noticed the Stalking Boots definitely end your movement. That is a bit of a problem. So potentially you could get the Stalking Boots and then you could add on the slicing symbol as well. And by doing that, you can try to generate some MP. And then this sort of loadout will do more like that. And you can just feel a little bit more honest, because whilst there's no reason not to use the most overpowered stuff, it does feel nicer not to, because you don't feel like you're trying to cheat the game. But the big one is going to be Notes and Weakness. Now, this one does come to you in Act 4. Before then, the build is perfectly usable. You saw me using just 2 regular Drukhari daggers, and even just the Interrogator dagger in Act 1. When it comes to hitting things with Killing Edge, yes, your Heavy Rock Sword will do the most. But it just doesn't feel good. I didn't show it off in there, but yeah, it does stack each damage with Killing Edge, so it is exceptionally powerful. But in terms of augmentation, what you'll notice on here is I have the Pneumatic Assault Grapple, because if we get kills, we can just refresh it. During Fine Style, this only costs 1 AP, so you can use it a lot. A big one here is going to be the Hemo Filters. You don't have to put on the Officer one, you can put on any of the others. But yes, you do not get the negative effects of combat stimulants, so you can abuse that quite a bit. I've got the Telemetric Logic Analyzer, so if we miss, which sometimes does happen, yeah, then you get a nice big damage boost. But the really good one here is the Focal Emitters. Focal Emitters are just absolutely fantastic, so I do enjoy greatly using them. It just makes any build better. Like I said, check out the tier list I did, and you'll understand why I always seem to pick these same ones. And yes, Skull Crusher is very good. You can use the Phase Oscillators or just no boots at all, but it is ones that I found exceptionally useful. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Galvanic Carapace. It's basically scales damage from armor. It's just too deadly to your own allies. You could use one of the Chemis Combat Infusers to get on some extra toxin damage, but the damage itself, whilst you get that big, pretty explosion, it doesn't really add much. And the Galvanic Inductors are just straight hot trash. The reason, like I said, I picked Navy Officer is going to be the Talent Fleet Combat Training. So every time we parry or get critical, we get a free offhand attack. More attack economy, more damage, more kills, more win. That's going to be probably why you do it. Yes, it would be nice if you could get on a Crime Lord, because Crime Lord does like the RP, and I do have a version of this for Crime Lord called the Knife Lord on the build, but unfortunately this version is just stronger. When it comes to talents, I prioritize getting Desolation first, because we get additional base agility damage to our melee weapons, which is going to be pretty big with this build. Rigorous Training, because yeah, we want those charge and slash not to end our MP, but it can bug out sometimes. Breakthrough is going to be that one to get us those slash so we can make those additional attacks through. We're going to focus our weapon skill and Fleet Combat Training. Like I said, this is the identity of the build and what we abuse it. There are some really cool builds that you can do with this. You could even do a soldier Navy Officer where you're playing as a soldier, go into Arc Militant, and then you could just put on one of the inverters, and then you could just main hand a melee weapon that then triggers an offhand pistol, which you could then have to trigger the MK Soldier Focal Emitters, and even that is exceptionally powerful. There are so many builds that benefit from just getting those offhand attacks, and especially your Focal Emitters because they all stack. I get on Shearing Strikes because, again, we want to get extra attacks, so might as well make 2 additional ones. Blade Throw is pretty useful if you're spamming these a lot because it starts building up damage. Reckless Strike, fantastic, like getting that onto a really big hit and also forcing melee enemies to attack you so you can parry them and then revenge attack. It is just super useful. Get Off Me will also knock down enemies, so this is one that I like to get in early, so it's a bit of CC. Cautious Disengage, so we don't waste MP before one of the little glitches takes it away from us. And I actually get Stentorian Voice early because that means that our Brace of Impact, because we're not really using the deflection, lowering enemy stats like this is actually going to be very useful. It's going to guarantee our crits, and because we're using dagger slow enemy dodge, then they're not going to dodge the killing edges either. This means more likely to crit, so we're more likely to get those Fleet Combat Trainings, and it also means that we're more likely to hit because we're using daggers. In the Assassin, I've changed my order from progression for what I normally do. We're getting Dance Macabre first because I like having the additional movement. Deadly Calculations is definitely going to be the one that you need to start the entire archetype going, so every time you do 10 damage, you do direct damage. I then get Morbid Period early, so our Dance Macabres can actually do damage. We can chase openings early because we're not a Blade Dancer. Blade Dancer doesn't need to get dance early, but it does really help us. Get into Killing Edge, so the Assassin's attack granting 40% dodge to the target of this attack, and if this attack hits, deals an additional 25 round down damage, increased by twice the percentage of the target's missing wounds. Yeah, that's why we use this with daggers. You don't need to use daggers. You could just have dagger in your main hand and then a normal weapon in your offhand if you like. I just like the aesthetic of 2 daggers. You don't need to use 2 daggers. Your offhand could be a perfectly normal Drukhari sword. Lethality Heightens will allow us to start increasing our lethality as we're going around killing things. Get Drukhari weapon proficiency early, and the reason we do this is so we can get into finesse. Imminent Demise, yep, as we're doing damage, we stack extra damage like a degrade defense effect, and this is now working. I have been campaigning for over a month to get this patched, and it came in the last hotfix. I like the upgrade 2 for dispatch, yeah, but then we get finesse as early as we can, because you do need Lord Xenos before you can get Drukhari weapons, so you can't get before level 22, so around this point, so this is going to be like level 24, is going to be the earliest we can get it, and then the next common talent we take finesse, so we scale our melee damage from agility instead of strength. Unfortunately, that won't apply to warrior abilities, but it's just extra damage coming in here. Getting Killing Spree means whenever we hit those openings, we're going to increase our damage by half our agility, and that means even when you run through enemies and you're just running through openings, this will actually proc and stack your damage. Death Whisper comes in last. Be careful using this on rock swords because it will lower all of your damage by quite a bit for the rest of the round if you use it on a rock sword. Dual weapon combat because sometimes you do just have a little bit of AP left over, so it is nice to have that, but a 2 AP attack isn't going to be the best, so you could swap out this one if you really wanted to. I take Disarray, so when we deal direct damage, we can inflict slow with a penalty, and the reason we do that is so seize the advantage. So we get 15 lethality against enemies that have slowed, immobilize, or hemorrhage, and that can cap at 45 extra lethality. So it's just useful early on to get some extra damage. And right before we go into Act 3, I do pick up Aldari weapon efficiency, because even though we're not really going to use Aldari weapons in Act 3, you could, because you could main hand a Drukhari dagger and offhand an Aldari chainsword, and then when we get the Lilithurian's Fury in Act 4, you can then main hand Lilithurian's Fury and then offhand the Drukhari dagger. So this is never a dead talent. You can just freely go through items, and the last one I take is Dispatch Upgrade 1. Going into Exemplar, the most important talent to get is Malign Influence, because this starts making our damage absolutely crazy. As soon as you have this, you want to use self-calibrating goggles for your helm, or if you're in Act 4, you will upgrade to the self-calibrating helm from the self-calibrating goggles. Open engagements can be useful, because if there are no enemies adjacent to the warrior at the start of the turn, your next attack is increased by 12. This does not apply to extra turns, so if you're spamming extra turns, you can swap that one out. Leave Concentration's bugs. We can't take it before now, but this is the earliest we can get it. Yeah, this is going to be very good because it's going to help build up. So whenever the assassin attacks the enemy, the assassin grants assassin's dodge reduction / target's dodge reduction divided by 2 lethality. This lethality bonus can't be less than 2. So yeah, quite useful. I do pick up Lethal Precision because, well, yeah, the first single attack gets 50% more critical damage, and yeah, it forces our first hit to be critical, so it does guarantee that we get those offhand stuff. Taunting Scream, yep, useful, because now that we have Malign Influence, this is just straight up an AoE damage. Lethal Threat is going to be a very important one to get here, because this means that all of our melee attacks will cause our enemies to make willpower resistance tests, so that will also build on with Malign Influence. Perfect Opening is going to be useful, because, yep, we get lethality chance to deal more damage to openings. Weapon skill, easy target, more damage. Elusive Shadow, you could swap that one if you really wanted to. Now, I like to pick up Lone Killer and Calculated Resolve here. If you really wanted to, you could delay Calculated Resolve so you're not proccing your heroics as quick, but you could possibly try to work in Power Arm efficiency, but before you can get that, you are going to need Peak Condition. I don't work in Power Arm efficiency because this build really doesn't need it. But if you really want to, you can try and move some things around. Maybe drop Degrade Defense here and then possibly try to get in at another slot. It's going to be up to you. But yes, I get Degrade Defense. Probably don't need this one. You could easily drop Degrade Defense from this build. It's not as meta as it used to be since the 90% nerf. I do pick up Ramming Speed and Impetus because we are using drugs. Sometimes you might be able to take the charge and then use the drug to make the slashes. So it's up to you. You'll have those opportunities for movement. Eye for Unscathed, it just gives you extra dodge reduction. so it helps offset the dodge bonuses that you're giving them with Killing Edge. And I do build up some perception, so I focus weapon skill first, agility, and then perception, finishing off with extermination. And yeah, residual power is just really nice to have because it just, after you galvanize no one, when you get some extra damage. But like I said, if you bring up peak condition, maybe kick out degraded defense from where it is, and then around here, you, instead of residual power, you can always pick up power arm efficiency. That's just if you want it for aesthetically. But Sworn Enemies can also be quite useful because you can mark bosses to extra damage. Esquive, you can abuse that by running at enemies, running away to dodge them, and you can start stacking up damage that way. You can do that with certain cloaks as well, like the Swift Shroud cloak, but it won't work if you're using the inertia boots. Now, I know I haven't explained every talent and read them out, but I do link the wiki in the spreadsheet, and I do have the spreadsheet below, so if you just want to copy and follow, you can do that. And if you want the build code so you can automatically level, do join my YouTube memberships, because by doing so, you also get access to the build codes for the auto builder mod. I've been Ram619. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do let me know if you're planning to run it like this, or maybe the Crime Lord version. And yeah, I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.